We'll move to question time. I call Senator Patterson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher, who's already ready to go, I see. Warren Hogan, economist at Judo Bank, said on the ABC 7:30 on Tuesday night, and I quote, "A big structural lift in government spending in the past decade, which has continued at pace in the last 3 years under this current government, is really all about recurrent spending. That, I think, is increasingly looking like a key factor why ultimately the problem we could be faced with is that interest rates are not high enough to get inflation down. Does the government take responsibility for the rise in inflation and consequential decisions by the RBA to keep the cash rate high?"
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank the Shadow Finance Minister for that question. And the Treasurer and I proudly present the budgets to the Australian people and to this chamber, and the updates to those budgets, and that has ensured that we've been able to invest in those key areas of service delivery. Senator Patterson often cites increased government spending. What he doesn't say, what he never says, is the vast majority of that was going into things like increased pensions, increased support for people with a disability, increased payments. Some of that influenced by higher inflation because those payments can be indexed. And that is the bit that Senator Patterson never says out loud. They like to criticise spending, but they don't like to talk about the fact that much of that was demand-driven programs, which are variations in the budget, but also that they're important investments. And when we came to government, we did find that there were areas where we needed to make additional investments, that people expected that, whether that be in payments like single parenting payment, whether it be in Commonwealth rent relief, to help people through some of those really difficult times. These were the areas that the government prioritised, and we will continue to do so, whether it's investments in Medicare, investments in education so that needs-based funding gets delivered to our children, whether it be investments in early education and care, the work that Senator Walsh is doing to make sure that every child, regardless of your situation, has an entitlement to early education and care, because we believe on this side of the chamber that that builds a better country if we invest in our people, and the government has a role to play there. So what Senator Patterson sees as increased spending as a negative, we see as investments in the future of the country.
Has expired. Senator Patterson, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Griffith University Professor Graham Hughes said, and I quote, "This means home owners must prepare for the cash rate to stay put for the foreseeable future. Adding to the pressure is Canberra's spending, which is effectively working against the RBA's efforts to bring rising prices under control. Minister, do you admit the economic reality that growth in government spending running 4 times faster than the growth in the economy is now having real effects on prices, inflation, interest rates and real wages?"
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, we've been very mindful where we have carefully calibrated our spending to ensure that it hasn't made the job of the bank harder, that we have been dealing with those big global pressures that have led to higher inflation. And you know, the bank itself, I think I hear Senator Patterson, and I have heard in interviews where I don't want to say you're misleading or misrepresenting the bank, but you've certainly got a different interpretation of what the governor has said in relation to that. We have been very, what you don't say is the things that we have done to assist the bank in its work, which is deliver 2 surpluses, pay down debt by returning extra revenue back into the budget, so we have less debt, less interest on that debt. But where we are investing, we are making a difference to people's lives, and it's in the productive side of our economy, in our people and in those people's skills.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Patterson, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. At present, the RBA is having to do all the heavy lifting via monetary policy to get inflation down. Will the government consider any changes in fiscal policy to support these efforts, or is the government's attitude to higher prices and lower real wages nothing to see here?
Right, strap in, mates, because today we're diving headfirst into the Great Aussie Illusion Act of 2025, Labor's nothing to see here spending spree, and how it's quietly helping to keep your mortgage sky high. Yeah, that's right, while you're watching your grocery bill balloon and your repayments chew through what's left of your pay packet, the government's standing there with a grin saying, "Relax, it's all fine, we're investing in the future." Sure, mate. Tell that to the bloke choosing between fuel and food. This all kicked off with a fiery little exchange in Parliament, Senator James Paterson taking aim at Finance Minister Katy Gallagher over what's become the political equivalent of a leaky tap that won't stop dripping. Inflation. Paterson, straight-faced, throws down the Economist card, quoting Warren Hogan from Judo Bank, who reckons government spending's gone off like a frog in a sock over the past decade, and Labor's kept the pedal down. Hogan basically says the quiet part out loud, that this non-stop spending could be the reason the Reserve Bank can't wrestle inflation down. Translation? Interest rates might need to stay high for longer, maybe even higher, just to fix what Canberra's splurging helped create. Before we unpack Labor's nothing to see here spin, where spending's up, rates are up, and Albo's acting like it's all fine, smash that like button and grab the not far right, just right shirt. Links in the description. Now, Gallagher, cool as you like, pops up to defend her turf. Thanks, Senator Paterson, she says, like she's about to read out a weather report. But here's where it gets spicy. She's not apologizing. Nope. She's proud of the budgets she and the Treasurer have delivered. You can almost hear the PR spin kicking into gear. We've been able to invest in key areas of service delivery. Sounds noble, doesn't it? But as every Aussie knows, when a politician says invest, they usually mean spend like it's not their money. Paterson's accusing them of fanning the inflation flames, but Gallagher counters with the old emotional hammer. We're spending on pensions, disability payments, rent relief, education, all the good stuff. And yeah, fair enough, those are important things. No one's saying we should leave pensioners or struggling renters to fend for themselves. But the key issue isn't where the money goes. It's how much of it's being sprayed around at a time when the economy's already overheated. Gallagher says a lot of it's demand-driven spending. That's bureaucrat speak for. We don't really control it. It just keeps growing because people need it. But that's the whole point when the cost of living's climbing and wages aren't keeping up. Chucking more cash into the economy only pumps it up further. It's like trying to put out a fire with petrol because the petrol station's locally owned. Paterson presses again, quoting Griffith University's Graham Hughes, another expert pointing out that the government's spending is running 4 times faster than the economy's growth. 4 times. Imagine if you kept giving yourself a pay rise that big, your boss would have you escorted out before morning tea. Hughes reckons this turbocharged spending is actively working against the RBA's efforts to bring prices down. Basically, while the Reserve Bank's got the handbrake pulled, Labor's got its foot welded to the accelerator. And here's where the political theatre gets thick. Gallagher doubles down, insisting the government's been carefully calibrating spending so it doesn't make the RBA's job harder. Carefully calibrating, she says, like they're running a science experiment, not the national budget. She even has the cheek to say they've helped the bank out by delivering 2 surpluses. Now, that's technically true, but let's not pretend it's a household surplus. The government didn't suddenly start printing money. They lucked into a rivers of gold revenue surge from iron ore and income taxes during the inflation boom. The kind of windfall any government, red or blue, would have milked dry while claiming fiscal heroism. The minister then rolls out the greatest hits. We're paying down debt, we've returned extra revenue, we're investing in productivity and people's skills. And look, it's a neat list, but the reality's more tangled. Yes, there's been a bit of debt reduction, but in the same breath, new spending's ballooning elsewhere. It's like paying off your credit card, then buying a jet ski because technically you're in the black. By the time Paterson gets to his third question, you can feel the tension building like a summer thunderstorm. He points out the obvious, that the RBA's doing all the heavy lifting, trying to tame inflation through interest rates alone, while the government's sitting back, arms crossed, pretending it's someone else's mess. His question lands with a punch. Will the government change its fiscal policy to help the RBA? Or is your attitude to higher prices and lower real wages just nothing to see here? That last phrase, nothing to see here, is brutal. It's become the headline grabber for a reason. It captures exactly what Aussies are feeling right now, that the people in charge are shrugging off the pain ordinary families are feeling as just part of the process. Gallagher fires back, saying she doesn't accept the proposition. Of course she doesn't. Politicians never do. She insists the government's mindful of its responsibilities and that it's delivering the commitments it took to the election. Classic deflection. We're just doing what the people voted for. But the truth is, no one voted for a cost of living crisis that feels like it's never ending. And then comes the punchline, Gallagher boasting that Labor turned 2 massive Liberal deficits into 2 Labor surpluses, with $100 billion in savings and $188 billion less debt. She even throws in that there's $60 billion less interest on that debt. Impressive numbers, sure, but here's the kicker. Those savings exist on paper more than in pockets. For most Australians, that surplus doesn't mean cheaper groceries, lower rents, or relief from 7% mortgage rates. It's political gold but household dust. The theatre of it all is almost Shakespearean. On one side, the coalition's trying to paint Labor as reckless spenders fueling inflation, a fair jab, though they've done the same dance when in power. On the other, Labor's presenting itself as the responsible adult in the room, saying, look, we're investing in people, not wasting money. But both sides are dodging the elephant in the room. Australians are drowning in rising costs, while both parties keep tossing around billions like confetti. What makes this all sting for everyday Aussies is the timing. The Reserve Bank's been hiking rates for 2 years straight. Every homeowner, renter, and small business owner can feel it. The dream of owning a home has turned into a financial endurance test. The bloke flipping sodges at Bunnings could tell you what fiscal tightening feels like better than any economist. And yet, here's the government, insisting its spending's not making the bank's job harder. You can almost hear the collective groan across the suburbs. Because here's the reality. When the government spends more, even on good things, it keeps demand high. When demand stays high, prices stay high. And when prices stay high, the RBA has one blunt tool: jack up the cash rate. So yeah, every time Canberra writes another billion-dollar check, it's like quietly whispering to the RBA, you'd better tighten the screws again, mate. It's not malicious, it's just the endless political balancing act. No government wants to be seen as cutting spending when people are hurting. But the irony is, their help is part of what's keeping the hurt going. Labor's talking about investing in the future, but Aussies are struggling to survive the present. You can't eat a future investment. You can't fill your tank with a policy speech. And yet, the spin keeps rolling. Gallagher insists the government's choices are making the economy more productive. Investments in education, Medicare, early childhood care, all long-term stuff, and sure, those are important. But right now, productivity isn't what's stopping people from buying groceries. It's the price tag. The middle class, the backbone of the country, is being squeezed harder than a lemon in a gin and tonic. Meanwhile, economists like Hogan and Hughes aren't exactly fringe voices. They're mainstream experts pointing out that government spending is working against the RBA. It's rare to see economists on both sides of politics agreeing on something, and when they're all saying, ease up on the spending, maybe it's worth a listen. But here's the kicker. Despite all this noise, both sides are too scared to blink first. The coalition doesn't want to call for spending cuts that make them look heartless, and Labor doesn't want to admit its welfare and service expansions might be fueling inflation. So instead, we get the classic Canberra compromise. Talk big, act small, and hope the RBA cops the blame. And that's exactly what's happening. The Reserve Bank's become the nation's punching bag. Every rate rise announcement gets Aussies frothing. Why are they punishing us? But the RBA's just trying to mop up the mess while the government keeps turning on the taps. It's like yelling at the lifeguard for the flood while the council's still hosing down the footpath. So, where does that leave us? With a government insisting there's nothing to see here while inflation sticks around like an uninvited guest at a barbecue. A political class convinced that spending equals compassion, and an economy that's running on fumes. The tragic comedy of it all is that both sides know exactly what's happening. They just can't afford to say it. Because saying it means admitting that someone's going to have to tighten the belt, and that never wins elections. So instead, they smile, talk about carefully calibrated spending, and hope the average Aussie's too busy working double shifts to notice their pay rise got eaten by inflation before it even hit the bank account. So, next time you hear a minister say, we're investing in the future, take a deep breath and check your mortgage rate. Because that investment, that shiny promise of a better tomorrow, might just be the reason you're paying an extra couple $100 this month. And while they're standing there in Parliament saying, nothing to see here, the rest of us are watching our wallets, wondering how long we can keep treading water before the next wave hits. And that, mates, is the quiet part no one in Canberra wants to say out loud. There's plenty to see here. It's just not pretty. Smash that like if you reckon Australia deserves better, and keep your politicians on a short leash, mate. Grab the Not Far Right Just Right shirt. Links in the description.